one too. Okay, so next up, I have a quick question. We have Georgios as the next speaker, so you can come up. There you are. A quick question. I asked this at the Dutch Startup Conference. Who here is from the Netherlands? Put up your hand. Very cool. And who here is not from the Netherlands? More people, I think. Very interesting. It was the same in Berlin and the other cities. So Georgios, where are you from actually?
Greece.
Greece, I thought so. What city?
Yeah, no. It's like north and west, nobody knows.
Alright, cool. I've never been there. This is it, right? No, that's
Hello, so welcome everybody. I'm going to speak about the topic of product-led growth, which is an interesting topic because I have spoken with a lot of you in the room and it's not really clear how to define it, and also there's a lot of hype around it, so I hope to help you clarify better what it means. So this is me. I still have to dress along with my avatar, but maybe sometime in the future, maybe Fabrican will help with the avatar dressing based on how I'm dressing every day. And I'm the founder of, sorry? Oh, it doesn't go back?
Oh, you,
Oh, it does.
show you.
Okay. So, it went back.
Oh yeah, it's right and left there.
Yeah. So I'm the founder of a startup which hasn't launched yet, so if you look us up, you will not find a lot of information about us. We're very still stealth mode, doing underground testing with users. But we're gonna launch pretty soon, and we're a PLG startup. So I'm partially speaking today from my experience and also partially from other people's experience. And when I was starting my company, and I'm sure you all have this experience as well, you want to make the best company. And I have this memory of Facebook when I initially signed up, that it really struck me, and I still remember that day when a friend told me, look at this website and let's sign up together and play these games. And I did some research initially when I started the company, and apparently there's this YouTube video from Samad who explains how they grew Facebook. And basically they didn't focus on any ego complex, they just focused on long-term ROI, and they just measured, tried and tested. And they focused on these three key terms, which is acquire, get to the aha moment as quickly as possible, which for Facebook was how do you connect with your friends, and then how do you retain users. And they just did this over and over, and it's a very interesting YouTube video, you should watch it. Now since then we saw a lot of successes in the B2C space. Some of them are Spotify, Tweets, Discord, Snapchat, and a lot of others that I'm sure you all know. But what happened with the B2B space? So usually when you get a sales training, enterprise sales training, you're being taught that in the end of the day you need to convince those top people, the top managers, and they have the budget, they have all the information, but in order to get there you kind of have to go through the bottom up, so you need to speak with other people to gather information and improve your pitch along the way. Now, something that changed is a change in buyer preferences, which is that people prefer to try before they buy. Think about Slack, how we started using Slack, and how basically the bottom organization is trying something and starts speaking about it and then convinces slowly the top management. So nowadays we have most of the employees being the decision makers who convince the top managers as the buyers to buy a new product, and we started seeing a lot of successes in the B2B space as well. So what is growth? Growth is a scientific way to achieve maximum distribution for your product. But what does that really mean, right? So a really good framework of thinking about a company is this one that I found from a quote in 0 to 1, which Marissa Mayer was the CEO of Yahoo at some point, and she said, you basically need to have a great team, and if you have a great team, you're going to have a great product. If you have a great product, you're going to attract traffic, and then eventually you will get to revenue at some point. So distribution is the part that brings the product to the users, And this is important, it assumes product market fit. So unless you have went through this testing phase and making sure that there is retention of the users, there is no point of focusing on growth at all.
Oh, you point at the computer, I think.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a bad product.
Yeah. So traditionally, the way we have been thinking about growing a business was we have funnels. So we have the marketing people who are bringing in users, and then we have the product, and then we have the salespeople that monetize. But this model is very fragmented, and it has different roles and different responsibilities for different goals. And there is, as Adam said earlier, it's not necessarily cohesive. And the new growth framework that we have is basically what we call loops. So we have an input that leads to an action that leads to an output. And of course, we can still use a funnel to enter the loop. But once we're in the loop, that's a closed system that basically reinvests itself. So every new user makes an action that leads to, for example, another user as an output, and that new user is a new input in the loop. Some examples of loops are when, for example, we're using Figma, and we start sharing a board with other people, and we get a comment, and then there is an email that pops up to someone that we're collaborating. Sales, Amplitude works with the sales loop, which is basically they hire a salesperson, and only if that salesperson drives a certain amount of sales return, then they will reinvest that sales capital to hire a new salesperson, and then they will keep on doing the same thing. SurveyMonkey, where basically people create user-generated content and they share it online, and that drives that brings new users on the product. And then ads, for example, we buy Instagram ad, and that leads to some like X amount of users, and then if that amount is good enough, we can reinvest that money to attract even more users. And in general, this is the new growth model that has been developed. So we're talking about growth motions and levers. So the levers are how do we acquire users, how do we monetize them, and how do we retain them, and how do we, and then we can apply the product-led motion, the marketing-led motion, and the sales-led motion. And by the way, this all comes from Elena Verna, who is an advisor at Amplitude, and like creates these like really nice graphs, and she's on LinkedIn, very active, and that's where I get most of my lessons from. And the good thing about this new growth model is that we can start measuring the way we're growing, and we can start making combinations about the levers that we choose and the motions that we choose. And in order to optimize that process, we actually need to start with one motion first, and then we need to aim at capturing all the motions so that we're not out-competed by any other company, because if we don't do it, someone else will do it. And a good way to bridge the product-led motion and the sales-led motion is the product-led sales, which basically you can combine the demand generation with the demand capture by driving initial usage by the product and then monetizing it via salespeople. Now, essentially what you want to do with PLG is to focus on core product value. And what does core product value mean? You want to basically help the users experience the product as much as possible and as quickly as possible. One way of doing it is with having no sign-up, for example, no login. TryEraser.com does that. Another way is outcome-based pricing. HubSpot does that. So if you get the marketing leads that you were expecting, then you start paying. Another way is community. Community growth is big. FounderPath recently just bought a community of SaaS, a SaaS community to do exactly that. And you can also reduce friction. I guess most of us have used Canva, and we see that there's a lot of free usage of the product before we actually get to some of us paying for the product. And they consider those people that never pay for the product free marketing, basically. And there is a growing tech stack that can help you as the department of producting, as Adam said, to deal with PLG. And of course, Amplitude, who is also the sponsor of the event, is one of them. But there is also a lot more companies and a lot of crossovers that can help you achieve that. Now, one last word of caution is that you really need to be careful when you're trying to implement PLG in the organization, because it might create organizational conflicts. Because it's not common for sales people to think about product leading the sales organization or the opposite, and that requires a sort of evolution. And sometimes if you try to rush that and try to just copy what you see that is working somewhere else, it might not necessarily work out in the end. So thank you very much, and yeah, if you have any questions.